So I'm going to be hosting today. So for starters, welcome everybody to our Leeds Lockdown Legends session number 1 as part of Leeds Digital Fest. And I'm Paul Mallett, so I'm managing partner at Mediaworks in Leeds, and we're delighted today to be joined by Liz Cottam, chef, restaurateur, all-round mover and shaker and hustler in the Leeds food scene. I think, you know, we wanted to put these together, and I think, you know, me and Liz were just chatting that, you know, we were kind of hoping that this would be like post lockdown and we'd all be going rah rah rah, everything's getting back to normal, and obviously we've had all the stuff that's happening today and yesterday, but you know, definitely that we're living through testing times. And I think we wanted to kind of set these up and frame it in, you know, kind of when we went into lockdown in March, everybody had to kind of pivot pretty quickly. And for some businesses, that was easier than others. Some people were just picking up a laptop and plonking it down in their office back home, whereas other people had to have survival plans, think about how to pivot, how to shift the model, you know, from pop-up delivery services, online events, being creative, new workflows, new ways of working with your teams. And you know, it's pretty clear that digital technologies have been at the heart of all of that, but also it's probably made us kind of have different relationships with our customers as well, because, you know, through reaching out through social media, people wondering what's going on, we've all had to talk to people more, and I guess it's made our brands as part of our business is really important, because that's a big way of how people connect and keep in touch with us. So we've kind of wanted to talk to some people who, and Liz being number 1 on the list of people that we find really inspiring, and also that, you know, have done some really interesting stuff during this period. And when I say interesting, that's downplaying it, you know, but maybe laying the foundations for a whole future. And I think what, you know, we were looking to try and find some positives out of all of this, but not just for the sake of it, to actually find real positives. So to talk to people that have done some really interesting stuff. So you know, Liz is very well known within Leeds and in the kind of wider national food scene. You know, rave reviews for Home, and more recently with The Owl. And if anybody listening hasn't read Grace Dent's review that The Owl got in The Guardian, have a read. It's you know, I think it's just testament to the effort that Liz and her team have put into things and what they've achieved. Yeah, that's so I guess, you know, I don't want to ramble on too much, but I remember that when me and Liz met, it was in the car park outside Tower Court in Armley Road in Leeds back in the 90s, and we were both starting out on our little journey into the world of digital marketing. And you know, me and Liz worked with each other for a number of years at Brand New Media, but then Liz really started off on a journey that I guess you've been continuing ever since, which has been one of you setting your sights on something and then really going for it. So do you want to just tell people a little bit of your run up to getting into the whole world of food and being a chef?
Yeah, I mean, the whole world of digital was it was a really creative, inspiring time in itself, and you know, me and Paul were in it right from the start, which is crazy, really. I worked alongside Paul, and then I decided that I wanted to go out on my own and create a business around the things that I really enjoyed doing, the style of kind of agency that of service that I wanted to create. So a number of stars aligned, and I ended up launching a business over in Barcelona and collaborating.
Like you do.
Yeah, you know, as you do. Yeah, so I did that, and that was really kind of eye-opening and interesting experience for none of the expected reasons, you know, kind of dealing with a different culture of people and a different business culture. All of those things were were really interesting and surprising, really. But yeah, so so I started my business up over in Barcelona. I created it in a way that, like I say, it was all about, you know, brave communications. It was all about kind of being able to work back then in a holistic way, which, you know, way back when people were trying to pigeonhole digital in one place and branding and offline in the other. And, you know, I was very passionate about bringing it together. And I brought together kind of like a number of people who were at the top of their game in their different kind of disciplines. And we kind of pulled together more like a collective, really, a strategic group of creative marketeers. And that was great and it was really good. But I came back and I mean, so the whole kind of financial crisis hit in 2009, and Spain was hit really, really badly. So I moved the business back here to the UK, and did pretty well over here. But, you know, for one reason or another, it didn't work out. And off the back of that, I went to work for Capita, huge BPO, extremely corporate, very different to what I'd been doing. And to be honest with you, I was a bit of a square peg in a round hole in this big corporate kind of world. And when that came to an end, I did a bit of consultancy and stuff, but I kind of was like, I don't know, I was doing really well in a financial sense, and, you know, getting a job which was well paid was relatively easy, lucky me. But every day I sort of felt like there was something missing and something that I wasn't doing that I needed to do. And I had no idea what that thing was at that moment in time, but I suppose I started to think differently about life, pushing 40, you know, you start to kind of reassess.
You're over 40.
And the rest now, and the rest. But yeah, I suppose I took stock of what I was doing and started asking myself the right questions. And those questions was, you know, what is it that really kind of drives you? What things really kind of mean to you? And I suppose I started looking for a way of getting up every day and doing something I really loved. I had no idea that I'd end up being a chef. No idea whatsoever.
So you know, I remember when you were just at the end of doing your consultancy stuff, and you were doing some interesting kind of e-commerce projects. I mean, you're doing some really interesting stuff, and then suddenly one day you told a select group of friends, and you went, "I'm going to be on MasterChef," and we all went. We knew that you were good at cooking, and we knew that you kept inviting us around for dinner parties and things like that. But that was a bit of a bolt from the blue.
Yeah, it was a weird one, because I picked up a camera and started taking photographs of people, and really enjoying that. And weirdly, that was getting recognised by some fairly experienced, fantastic kind of photographers. And I suppose that for a moment there, I thought that was the route I was going to take. And then, yeah, I actually got onto MasterChef a couple of years before, got persuaded to throw in an application at the last minute. Wine was involved. Chucked in the application and got on, and looked at the filming schedule and just went, no, I don't think I can commit to this, and I don't even know why I'm doing it. And I told my mum, and, you know, mum's being mums of a certain age, and she's like, oh, you know, my daughter being on television, that would be wonderful. And then when I didn't go through with it, she was really disappointed. Anyway, so skip forward 2 years later, you know, Facebook reminded me what I was doing 2 years earlier, which happened to be applying for MasterChef. Mum was in hospital, out of the blue, strange kind of illness, and I was in a different place. So I was like photographing and looking for a creative way to earn a living, I suppose. And I thought, oh, hang on a minute, maybe I should have another horse in this race. What opportunities could I get out of maybe revisiting the MasterChef kind of idea? And it's going to really cheer my mum up. So I just cut and pasted the same application, put it in. That was at 1:45 midnight. And then unfortunately my mum passed away that night. And the next morning, MasterChef called and went, we remember you and we want you back on. And I just suppose I kind of post-rationalized it and said it was a sign. It was a sign that to go on the show and see where it went. And thank God I did, because had it not been for those weird set of circumstances, I wouldn't be where I am now, which is literally, I say this quite a lot, it's a little phrase of mine, but I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm the poorest. I'm the tired, exhausted, but genuinely the happiest I've ever been. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
a very strange set of circumstances, really.
yeah, and well, you know, I mean, we'll talk about this a bit more, but I mean, you know, you've certainly never been the sort of to you know, your focus, and once you've decided what you're doing, you know, one thing I know about you is that whatever you say you're going to do, you'll do it, and then you'll do it in spades. But when you so MasterChef all happened, and that gave you, that kind of gave you even more fire, didn't it? I mean, it almost like although it was confidence building, it also made you just go, I'm going to show those what I'm capable of, and then you started that you know, you did your kind of pop-up versions of home, but then before we knew it, you'd launched home.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that MasterChef did, so I didn't want to be a chef. They ask you, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a day why you're on the show, and ask you what you want to do with it next. And it was like I just thought you've got to be completely crazy to want to be a chef, to work really ridiculous long hours, very, very kind of stressful circumstances, and also restaurateuring, being a business person and an entrepreneur. I kind of knew what high risk industry the restaurant industry was. So I was like, no, you've got to be mental to even consider that. But what it did do, it put me into a professional kitchen. And I hate being in the studio, but the minute I was in a professional kitchen, just something clicked. Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I think I'm like I mean, you'll know this about me, Paul. I think I'm like a pack animal. I love kind of, you know, when we're in the agency world, you know, it was great, those late nights where we all had to pull together to somehow pull it out of the bag to deliver something special. The camaraderie, like I say, kind of like the whole, you know, running with the wolves, really, and I've always enjoyed that, and I've always been I think a natural leader as well. So I think there's something in the kitchen setup that just suits me as a person, and MasterChef introduced me to that. So when I came out, I delved into doing a few things on my own, and the pop-ups were on my own, and I just didn't enjoy that because I think because I was with my team or a team. So I knew that I had a passion for cooking, and also actually for delivering a service to customers. I mean, that's the other big part of this. Everyone talks so much about cooking, but you can't really run a successful restaurant without loving the service, the delivery, and the connection with people, really. I think a lot of people attempt to do that and fail miserably, and maybe it's because the focus isn't there. But for me, it's always been a big part of why I do what I do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you kind of so then home happened, and you got your, you know, you found your premises, you know, you absolutely transformed a space to create an environment and an experience and a brand. Just tell us about how much is it right to say you're creating a brand? Is that what it's about when you create a restaurant? Because you got the food, you got the service, you got the ambience, and all of that comes together, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely a brand. It really, really is. We talk about brand and also about, you know, identity, which, you know, in the agency world, that's the two things go hand in hand. You know, it's important for us to have an identity in terms of a creative. From the food needs an identity, and the experience also needs to be unique. Or else, you know, you're gonna get lost out there in amongst all the other restaurants. So yeah, I mean, and from word go, when I was at the Ellington and I was doing the residency, I went and spoke to all of the customers, and in one way or another, they said, "You really make me feel at home. Um,
Yeah.
you, yeah, you make me feel like I come round to your house for dinner. And everyone loved that. So, you know, how many hundreds, or if not millions of pounds, Paul, have we spent of clients' money arriving at what a brand should be, and, you know, spending a lot of time in a boardroom coming up with the idea and the rationale and the, you know, like the positioning. And what I had really was first-hand experience of customers telling me what made them attracted to what we were doing. So that's where home came from. It came from the customers telling me that that's what they loved about what we were doing. So yeah, it kind of wrote itself in terms of what it stood for in the beginning. And I think this is the really interesting thing. You know, home is really new restaurant, it's 3 years old, but the way that we've evolved and changed in those 3 years, it's been quite a dramatic evolution of home, and what home meant then and what home means now. There's still some genes and concerns which exist, but is very, very different to what I started out.
Yeah, well, let's come back to that, because I remember having a conversation with you probably halfway through. Well, a number of conversations while you were doing home, and you were starting to talk about other ventures, and you're having other conversations, and, you know, wondering how you could where you could not where you go next, but how you could add on to what you've got, and try new things and explore other avenues. And out of all the different options that you had, suddenly out popped the owl,
Yeah.
which no one saw coming. So
Yeah.
talk us through how, I'd say how you gave birth to the owl, but that just sounds wrong.
Yeah, it's a strange one, because, you know, that kind of entrepreneur in me, you know, I always have a number of different ideas and a number of irons in the fire, and I really enjoy the process of creating new things. I think that's why I'm a chef, you know, creating new dishes, and the creative process never, ever, ever ends. But in terms of a business sense, well, I think the other important thing here is kind of the reason why the owl came about. And I am wholeheartedly a Leeds girl through and through. I'm very, very, very very patriotic about being from Yorkshire, and that's just something that's always been part of who I am. Going back to our kind of agency lives, the projects that I never ever lost the pitch for were the ones which had something to do with marketing this wonderful city and the businesses, and you know, like all of that stuff I found it really easy to get passionate about. So I was actually at a top 100 gastropub event in London, and I had a bit of time, so I was like, right, okay, well, where'd you go? You got some time in your hand in London. I went to Borough Market, and I was kind of mooching around there, just marveling at how great it was. And then I had a little tantrum because, you know,
Really?
Yeah, I don't do as much as that these days, but I definitely had a tantrum, and because I was just so completely flabbergasted that we had the most beautiful building in the world across the street from my restaurant that was completely underutilized.
And that being Leeds Market.
Leeds Market, yeah, like we're home is, I have a roof terrace at home, and it overlooks the market, you know, like taunting me every day. And, you know, you watch like Massimo Bottura, famous 3 Michelin star chef, and he walks around Moderna, and he goes to the market there, and he decides what to cook, and he's got armfuls of girolles and fantastic kind of produce. And, you know, we're a far cry from that. You know, Leeds, if you don't know it, Leeds Market, it's, I suppose it's fair to say it's had a bit of a value proposition from the day, well, not from day one, but at least for the last 20-30 years. And because of that, you know, you certainly don't get your rolls over at the market. So I just sort of thought, well, do you know what? If I'm going to do another business in Leeds, I probably need a better reason than just wanting to cook or just make money. And that reason for me was I desperately wanted the city to be better. I desperately wanted Leeds Market to be enjoyed more. And then sometimes you need kind of like an emotional connection and emotional juice to actually to do things and to see things through. And I had a lot of all of that for doing in Leeds Market. I got on the phone to a market director from whilst I was in Borough Market. I said, I need to come and talk to you because I want to do something in Leeds Market. And they said, what? And I went, well, I don't know, but by the time by the time I come to the meeting, I'll have thought of something. And I did, and that was the owl.
Brilliant. And so the owl was kind of a instant hit.
Yeah, she really was. I mean, I knew selling £10 pints and fine dining in Leeds Market that there was going to be a lot of people who didn't understand what we were about. But you know, when you're trying to kind of like force some change, you've got to be ready for that. Yeah. And we were, you know, and the people who loved us really got us, and told everyone to come. So from day one, we were just packed out. And then we had, you know, the odd person who just couldn't wrap their head around, you know, the price point, and people who don't understand that, you know, a scallop can cost you 50p or £5. You know, we were serving the expensive stuff. But yeah, so I think you know, Leeds also needs not to be patronised, you know. So one of the things when I was starting up home, people were like, what, you're going to do a tasting menu and you're going to get people to pay up front, and people are not going to understand that in Leeds. People are going to think you're too expensive. And I was like, hang on a minute, you know, I'm one of those people. I'm a customer when I'm not at work, and I really want all of this stuff, and I don't want to travel down to London for it. So yeah, I think that's a bit of an outdated view on the Yorkshire folk.
Yeah, and you just got to the point where basically people were queuing around the block and you couldn't even book to get into the Owl. And you'd had your amazing, just the start of some amazing reviews, and you know, let alone as a punter, the food was just amazing. And then lockdown happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, the Owl was going from strength to strength, and home had a fantastic kind of reputation from day one. But you know, I've got to be honest, managing a team of people in the hospitality industry is very different from managing one in our world, and it was really tough. And it took me 3 years to get to the point where I had a really kind of loyal, focused, energized, motivated team. And we got there in January. So in January, we were kind of stood around in our briefing. So we have a briefing before every service. And, you know, normally up until January, we had a number of things to remind people about, or, you know, to kind of point out things weren't working in the way we needed them to. And in January, every single briefing was congratulating the team on how well things were going. And the week started to top up. You thought first couple of weeks, oh, okay, that was a fluke, and it wasn't. So by the time March hit, we'd had a perfect kind of score for the entire year. So when lockdown came for both the Owl and home, it was just, I mean, you know, for everybody, don't get me wrong, but, you know, talking from a personal point of view, you know, knocked the wind out of me, really did.
Yeah. And before we talk about home, so with, you know, we a lot, you know, a lot of not of your level, but a lot of restaurants and people started trying to offer delivery services, those kind of things. You know, obviously some of the higher end restaurants started doing cook-alongs or whatever, and I guess we were all waiting to see what your response was going to be and whether you were going to do something from the Owl. And do you want to talk us through what your thought process was and what it actually ended up doing for you, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was interesting watching people scramble to just do something really quickly. And for me, I just wanted to take my time over it, because the way that I looked at it is that whatever we did was a reflection on the brand, and also had to be something we were incredibly proud of. And to just rush something really quickly, and, you know, and I was watching and actually tasting some of the rushed efforts, I just didn't want us to do anything that wasn't something we were proud of. So I kind of just sat back and watched a little bit, and then I started to think about, you know, what it was that we could do, which was different, which was better, and again, you know, and something that we were proud of. So the first thing I did was kind of put my marketeer hat on and tried to kind of work out logistically how this was going to happen in lockdown as well. You know, so, you know, instead of just making some food and like wrapping it in a white paper bag and shoving it in a plain cardboard box, I kind of really started to think about the experience of receiving the boxes and the experience of cooking with them, and then looking at what I could somehow kind of put my hands on in lockdown. And sorry, it was kind of like a pincer movement in terms of what I could put my hands on in terms of boxes and stickers and design time and what have you, and what I was trying to create as an experience. And that's how we came up with the owl boxes. And I think the thing that sets them apart is they do look great, don't get me wrong, but actually the way that we connected the cook along element, but within a in the marketing that came with it, really kind of made it stand out as being, I think, probably, you know, one of the best ones out there, really.
Yeah, and one thing that really struck me, and this is just anecdotally by watching my people I know on social media, that it made a load of people that had been meaning to go to the owl and try the owl. You gave them an accessible way of going, I can try this now, and then them raving about it afterwards, and no doubt then coming back as customers. And I thought that was really interesting, that it kind of it's kind of a marketing channel in its own right. I know that isn't your primary motivation, but I thought that was really interesting. It built connections with new people.
Yeah, the amount of people who are like, we've been trying to get in for forever, and we've not been able to get in. So this is a great way of us sampling what the owl has to offer. So it was great from that point of view. It was also really good in a way that, from a team point of view, because we didn't make any money out of the boxes at all, far from it. But it really kind of allowed us to come together as a team, and albeit kind of like in a very kind of COVID way, you know, it had to go through a lot of scheduling and rules and things, but, you know, we would have lots of Zoom conversations, not just kind of, you know, the work thing, which was sort of, it gave you more purpose. We were getting together and doing wine tastings and things like that, but the work thing really gave people a sense of purpose and helped them through lockdown as well. And that was the main reason, was just trying to keep people from going crazy at home.
Yeah, cool. So, and then all that was going on, and then I think this is the thing that then I found the most amazing, was that you didn't then neglect home. So home was shut. You didn't do a home delivery service. You didn't try and go into that space. But to me, then you went away and you've done the most amazing thing with home. And do you want to tell people what you did? So you were back at your home, and suddenly you got the frying pan out. I'm sure it's not called a frying pan.
I got the water bath out. Yeah, I think so home, just for context, before lockdown, you know, 10 to 14 courses, tasting menu format, and we decided early on that we wanted to change the menu every single month, which was fantastic because it gave us so much creative, or so we thought, lots of opportunities to create things every single month. But it was a very, very, very labour intensive, stressful engine that we sort of designed, and we were to change it. A lot of restaurants at our level don't change it for years, you know, and we change it every month. And, you know, it was kind of like a double-edged sword. We really enjoyed the change and the challenge, but you know, creating something to a deadline, it was stressful. And sometimes, looking back, I don't think we actually really enjoyed the process as much as we wanted to. And I think but you don't know what you don't know either. So we created this engine and we were constantly improving it and feeling proud of the fact that we were streamlining processes, and we were doing better food, and the trainings were going really well, and the wine pairings seemed to, we were getting really good at creating a streamlined process. But then the minute I got the time to take a step back from that process, go into the kitchen without a deadline, the whole process completely changed. And I started to really enjoy the process. And I realized that we had been designing, which probably out there, like 90% of restaurants will design food, and they'll, take some ingredients and know that it's the right season to use them, and then they'll design a dish around it and be very proud of it, and it'll taste really good. But for me, when I started to take off the deadline and the design element and just genuinely not know where I was going to end up with ingredient choice, and also with the way it was going to look, I discovered that I was enjoying it more, and I realized I'd fallen into more of an artistic kind of frame of mind, and it just worked better for me. And I don't even think it was about kind of sort of just cooking as well. So I had the time to do other things. I had the time to get back into looking at what was going on in the photography world. I was listening to people who were screenplay writers and getting really excited about their creative process. And all of this kind of absorbing what people were doing and learning from their experience, not necessarily to use it in any particular way. It was enriching me. And I think something really special has come out of that time.
So you kind of rediscovered, because you are an artistic person, obviously. Well, I know that. I know you can draw. I know you take amazing photos, and that you've had that inside of you. But you kind of rediscovered that and applied that to your cooking in a way that you hadn't really done before, or?
Yeah, it was just, I don't know, all of a sudden I discovered that I could get inspiration from what I was doing, rather than designing something which was very ingredient led. And like, that might sound really obvious to most people, but I hadn't actually allowed the creativity, in terms of artistic creativity, to be connected to the cooking. It was cooking, and it was about how it tasted, and then we'd make it look pretty. Whereas, so now, so back then I was going outside quite a lot, whenever I could, and I was really looking at my world around me, and I was really fascinated with nature. I was photographing it, I was videoing it, and then I was coming home and interacting with that. And then suddenly, I was looking at that, and then going into the kitchen, I was having an idea for a dish that somehow connected with some of the things I'd seen out in on walks, or I even started going back through photographs of when I'd been around the North Yorkshire moors and things, and I realised that I loved those things, and I realised that I could create dishes that kind of celebrated those images, and also how I felt about being in these places felt like an amazing reason to create a dish that celebrated it, and it just kept coming.
Yeah.
It just kept coming, and the way that things started to look, and the relationship each of the dishes had with one another, and how, when I looked at what the dishes became, I was so much more emotionally connected with it, and everything just joined up together and started creating what is now our identity.
Yeah, and for people that haven't seen some of Liz's new dishes, it's like Liz says, it's kind of born out of the environment, born out of nature, but born out of Yorkshire. But and although there's some things where Liz might have been a bit more literal and used like a pebble to talk about a pebble, but actually it doesn't. You're not creating little miniature watercolors on a plate of the Yorkshire landscape. It's using. It is truly coming from somewhere else, where objects and feelings, and something about that environment is coming through in the food, that when you then, I haven't tasted it yet, but looking at it, you go, okay, I can feel something here that feels like it's of Yorkshire. It doesn't feel like it's of Spain or French or whatever. You can feel the hills and the earth and the seaside and all of that coming through in it, which I think is, I mean, that's the differentiator between art and design, isn't it? Where you know, something is coming through, and it's as a result of your involvement with it as an artist, rather than trying to design or copy or anything else.
Yeah, I mean, so I sorry, excuse me, I'm just on a call. Sorry. I'm sorry. I've come away a very rare day in Yorkshire Moors, which we're talking about now, and someone's just asking me directions. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I think for me, I think I've been. I think I was nervous of using the food as a medium, you know, an artistic medium. I don't know why. I just don't think that it was a natural thing that occurred to me, that, you know, the food was actually an artistic communication kind of vehicle, but it is, and it can be. It doesn't have to be. And this is the thing, it tastes delicious, and you don't have to understand what my inspiration was, or whether or not it's representing a Yorkshire landscape, or, you know, anything like that. You can just come and enjoy the food. But there is all that depth, and there is all that reason, and there is all this kind of intention about why the food is the way that it is now. And you can interact with that as little or as much as you want. But from a process point of view, both myself, I'm enjoying the journey of creating these dishes more than I ever have. The staff really also, all the team all really understand what we're doing and why. The stories that are connecting the food to the experience when you come, you know, with the stories that we tell, I think have more identity and meaning. You know, it just feels more purposeful, and I think that's so interesting, because art can be sort of looked at as a really frivolous, meaningless thing, and for me it's really given me, like I keep saying, like a sense of purpose, which is just a gift.
And then just to kind of pull it all around full circle, that then I was looking at your brand and how you've kind of been expressing your brand, and then suddenly I think your brand suddenly took on a whole new meaning, where the word home, it was much bigger than it wasn't about your home anymore. It was about this land is my home.
Yeah.
And suddenly your brand was kind of imbued with new dimensions that then, for me, but as a marketeer, I just went, wow, bingo! You've really done something here. You didn't set out to say, I'm going to redesign and reevaluate my brand. It's come from a very truthful, authentic place that has come from you, and has then reflected back into your brand. And I think that is so interesting, that from a logo that you devised 3 years ago and said it's about people feeling that they're at home when I come to my restaurant, for it to have evolved is amazing.
I don't know how we've ended up here, but thank God we have. I think we're probably going to change again. You know, I don't know how and when, but I think an authentic brand, it sort of tells the truth, doesn't it? So I think back in the day, home definitely was about coming, you know, representing a coming round to my house style of service and what have you, and now it's about home being Yorkshire. It's about home being the UK. This typically British food, which then celebrates things that mean things. You know, like I see all these wonderful places in Yorkshire as my home. I identify with them, and everything sort of starts to write itself at this point. You know, so before, you know, we were trying to work out what to design and what the dishes were going to be. And you know, everything has so much momentum now and purpose that there's just not enough time in the day to try and capture all of this wonderful kind of energy and these creative ideas that we have, and ways of communicating that. It's a bit like a runaway train now. We've got into our groove. It's really interesting.
Well, that's and that is an amazing place to be, versus sitting around scratching your head working out how to design the next dish that must include a beetroot, because beetroots are available in this month in the market. I think it's
we use ingredients that are in season, but it's not about it being. But you understand. I mean, I can understand why chefs get so obsessed with food, because they need to get obsessed with something, right? You know, like their stories are about the wonderful produce, and I totally understand and respect all of that, but it was just never enough for me, and it wasn't different enough either. It was a well-trodden path. But yeah, it's been really interesting kind of year, a fascinating year so far.
Yeah. Well, and you know, and I mean, let's hope that, you know, this stuff kind of disappears and we can get back to enjoying these things. And you know, but I do think it's amazing that you've used this, you know, the time that you've had this year to do something really amazing. And you know, I shouldn't be surprised because you're that kind of person. But you know, rather than, you know, becoming introspective and you know, getting depressed about it all, you turn this situation to actually discovering things about yourself, which I think is pretty amazing. And then how that's then made it through to your brand, and I think that will, you know, it is about how businesses move forward, isn't it? And I think it's going to be really exciting to see the next chapters in Home and the Owl.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is the overarching kind of message really from me, is, you know, you have to focus on solutions and you have to focus on things you can control, and that's exactly what we did during lockdown, and that's what we're going to do with whatever happens now after these announcements. It's about 100% moving forward in a positive way, making use of the time that we've got to take stock of why we're doing things and how we're doing things. And yeah, you've just 100% got to try and make the best out of every single bad situation, don't you?
Yeah.
Don't you?
You do. Right. Well, so thank you so much, Liz, for giving up your time from sunny Staves.
Sorry, I totally forgot I was coming, but yeah.
No, that's it's brilliant, and you know, I find you such an inspiration. I always have done, and your drive, and you know, your ability to see what the future can be and then make it happen is amazing. So thank you very much indeed, and for people that have joined. Watch out for the other 3 of these that we've got coming up this week and next week, and I hope that you've enjoyed that, and I hope you find what Liz has said to be as inspiring as I do. So later, potato, and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye bye.
Thanks so much. Bye bye.